CJ Flyer back with another YouTube video. In this one, we are going to be comparing the NBA 2K11 rosters with these new My NBA era rosters that we have here in 2K24. So, for those of you that weren't aware, in last year's version of 2K23, we had the option of starting a franchise mode in the 80s, in the early 90s, and in what is called the Kobe era in 2002. And this year, we now have the LeBron era starting in 2010. I'm not sure what designates 2010 as being the beginning of the LeBron era or 2002 being the beginning of the Kobe era, especially since Kobe won a couple championships before 2002. I don't make the game, I just make videos on it. That being said, 2010-2011 is the season in which NBA 2K11 was out. And so we're going to go ahead, pull up these rosters, and compare. Let's start with the first team here. We're going to compare all of the teams' overalls with NBA 2K11 roster overalls and see if there's any discrepancies, because I did notice I was about to start a My NBA throwback video for the LeBron era, and then I was looking, I'm like, these overalls look kind of weird. Not as I recall them being. And I think what happened is hindsight's 2020. So someone like Blake Griffin, who was like a raw prospect coming into the NBA. I mean, yeah, he was, people assumed he was going to be talented, but now in hindsight, knowing how great of a player he ended up being, he starts out with a little bit of a higher overall. Also, 2K11 didn't have a badge system. They just had straight up attributes, and that is it. While 2K24 has all kinds of different settings going on to influence a player's overall. So I think that's why there's also some discrepancies, but I thought this would be an interesting video. Just go ahead and check out and compare the overalls of all the players. So we're going to start here with the Philadelphia 76ers. And right off the bat, there's some discrepancies here. So in NBA 2K24, we have Andre Iguodala at an 84 overall, Elton Brand at an 82, and Drew Holiday at an 80, and Thaddeus Young at a 79. If we look on hoopshype.com for the 2K11 rosters, Andre Iguodala is an 85, so pretty close, not too bad. But then we have a huge knockoff. Evan Turner, his overall match is at 76. Elton Brand at a 73, but in 2K24 he's a bit overrated at an 82. I think did they just copy the younger version of Elton Brand and throw him on this 76ers roster? I'm not sure. Same with Drew Holiday. I know a lot of people are Drew Holiday is now an all-star player, but back in his younger days, 80 overall might have been pushing it. In 2K11, he was a 70 overall, so a huge difference there as well. For the rest of these players, yeah, Thaddeus Young, a huge bump. In 2K11, he was 71. And then some of these other players, Lou Williams is right where he was in 2K11. Some of these other players also somewhat matched up with their overalls from the previous game, or at least within a few points. But yeah, the big ones here, Drew Holiday and Elton Brand being overrated. All right, next one, we got the Charlotte Bobcats. We got Gerald Wallace and Steven Jackson. Now, actually looking at hoophypes.com, Hoops Hype, not Hoop Hypes. Gosh, can't even say the name right. Gerald Wallace isn't on the roster. I believe that's because he got traded at some point. I'm not sure if these 2K11 rosters online, if these are from before the season started or after the last season update for 2K. So Gerald Wallace got traded mid-season to the Portland Trail Blazers in 2010-2011 season. So it looks like the Hoops Hype roster is from after the last season update, the last game update for 2K11. Whereas the rosters we're looking at here for My NBA in 2K24, those are from before the start of the season. So perhaps, some of the discrepancy may come from the timeline here. This is preseason rosters versus the Hoops Hype roster I'm looking at, which is post-trade deadline. However, players like Elton Brand and Drew Holiday, I don't think there's any reason. That doesn't explain the discrepancy there, that's for sure. So looking at the Charlotte Bobcats once again, DJ Augustine here at a 78. Meanwhile, on 2K11, he finished the season at a 69. Same with Boris Diaw here. In 2K24, he's a 78. And in 2K11, finished the season at a 70. Some other interesting names, Sean Livingston. Of course, he's got a reputation for being a really good role player for the Warriors during their first couple of finals runs. Meanwhile, in 2K11, finished the season at a 60 overall, while in 2K24, he's at a 78. So that is an 18 overall difference. That is a huge one. That is for sure. All right, moving on. With the Milwaukee Bucks, and as I figured, Brandon Jennings was going to be overrated in 2K24. He's a very popular player. In 2K11, he was a 75 overall. Andrew Bogut, this one's actually pretty spot on. 83 overall in 2K24, 82 in 2K11. Corey Maggetti's pretty spot on. Drew Gooden, man, he got a huge bump in 2K24. He finished the season in 2K11 with a 65 overall. Other than that, everything's looking pretty good. I see that they're missing, who is it, Drew Gooden? No, Drew Gooden's here. Carlos Delfino, they're missing him. That's right, some of these players are also going to be missing, not because they were traded, but because 2K doesn't have the rights to their names to use in the game anymore. Larry Sanders is a bit of a bump up. He's at a 73 here, but in 2K11, he finished the season with a 65. Okay, I cannot get the Chicago Bulls roster to open on hoopshype.com, so we're going to skip over to IGN's 2K11 guide right now. And wow, Derrick Rose at a 95 overall here in 2K24. It's the MVP year. Meanwhile, on the 2K11 guide for IGN, we're seeing Derrick Rose at an 85, a huge discrepancy there. These might have been the rosters before the game came out, or before the season started. I mean, it's hard to say. Joakim Noah also getting the huge bump here in 2K24 with an 86 overall, and 2K11 a 77. Same with Luol Deng. He gets a 4 overall bump in 2K24. Boozer right around the same spot as where he was. Seems like a lot of these Bull players actually got a big bump. Ronnie Brewer from a 69 to a 77 in 2K24. Kurt Thomas, why is he getting a huge bump in overall? He's 38 years old, and in 2K24 with a 76 overall, and 2K11 he was a 68. Yeah. Wow, Taj Gibson, 76 in 2K24, looking a little cross-eyed in the picture there. And in 2K11, a 69 overall. Kyle Korver also getting a huge bump from a 66 to a 75. Keith Bogans from a 65 to a 74. It seems like whoever created the rosters has a lot of love for the Chicago Bulls, I guess, and for Derrick Rose and his MVP year. Here's another crazy one. Brian Scalabrine, who's historically one of the lowest rated players in the game. He was a 44 overall in NBA 2K11. I'm not even sure that's possible anymore in the new 2Ks. He's now a 62 in this game here, 2K24. All right, the shell of the roster, the Cleveland Cavaliers, after they lost LeBron James. We got Antoine Jamison at an 83 in 2K24. 2K11, he was a 78. Anderson Varejao getting a huge bump. He was a 68 overall in 2K11. We got him as an 81 in 2K24. And then J.J. Hickson also getting a huge bump up. 79 in 2K24, a 65 in 2K11. Same with Ryan Hollins. Oh my goodness, that is a 19 overall bump up from 55 to 74. All right, the Boston Celtics. This is going to be a fun one. I know a lot of these players are going to be overrated. Kevin Garnett in 2K11 was an 80 overall. In 2K24, he is a 91. This is not the 2008 Celtics. Just keep in mind, this is 2011. This is when they started to be less competitive going to the finals. This is the year after they made the finals. So granted, some of these players, maybe they start the season hot and they fall off a bit going into the playoffs. But that being said, it is still a huge discrepancy to have Kevin Garnett at a 91 versus the 80 that he finished with in 2K11. Paul Pierce in 89 was an 83 in 2K11. Rondo actually right around the same overall here, 88 to 87. Ray Allen was down to a 79 overall at the end of 2K11. And then Shaq, surprisingly around the same overall, 79 to 77 in 2K11. Same with Jermaine O'Neal, pretty close. Glenn Davis, that's a huge difference there. This is not 2012, like this is 2011 Glenn Davis, and in 2K11 he was a 64, in 2K24 he's a 77, so a huge discrepancy. Like I said earlier, hindsight is 2020, and of course Blake Griffin, we now know he is one of the greatest players in the league for a short amount of time, for a few years for the Clippers. But back when he first came into the league, there's no guarantee. He was a young prospect, not quite the dominating star that he became for a few years. So again, he's an 88 here in 2K24 for the year 2010-2011, but finishing off 2K11, he was a 76, so a 12 overall difference there. Eric Gordon made the jump here. He's an 83 in 24. He was a 74 in 11. Chris came in right around the same overall. DeAndre Jordan, huge. This might be the biggest difference yet, right next to Brian Scalabrine. He was a 54 overall in 2K11. And I recall going back and playing 2K11 a few years ago, and like he was not worth even putting on the court. Meanwhile, 2K24, I guess we've already predicted that he's going to become a better player. And DeAndre Jordan given that 79 overall to start. I wonder if part of the reason they do this too is because the way the progression works, it's highly unlikely a player can jump 20 overall within 1 to 2 seasons, which is exactly what happened with DeAndre Jordan. I mean, a 54 overall in 2K11, and then fast forward to 2K13, 2K14, and he's the starting center on the Clippers and placed around a 70s, upper 70s, 80 overall player. So, maybe that's why they do it, because the progression in this game just doesn't account for that big of a jump. All right, Memphis Grizzlies, Zach Randolph an 87 overall in 2K24, 80 in 2K11. Rudy Gay right around the same. OJ Mayo, actually, this is the first. So, a lot of these players, we've seen them rated higher or overrated compared to what they were in 2K11. But OJ Mayo here is shown as a 78. Meanwhile, in 2K11, he finished the season at an 80 overall. I do wonder, again, I feel like they've copied some of these players from other historic teams and didn't change around the attributes a whole lot. I hope that's not the case. It's just a hunch. Would have to do some more research to actually confirm that. Tony Allen in 2K24, a 79. Hindsight's 2020. Now we got Tony Allen as a 66 in 2K11. Must be all those defensive badges giving him the boost. All right, the Atlanta Hawks. In 2K11, Joe Johnson was the highest rated player, exactly an 88, so same as 2K24. The one difference though in 2K24 here, Al Horford at an 89 overall, while in 11, he was a 78 overall. Jamal Crawford, I was kind of expecting him to be overrated in 2K24, but he's actually right around where he's at in 2K11. And then same with Josh Smith. So a lot of these ratings, pretty consistent, pretty close. Jeff Teague a little overrated because we know, fast forward to 2K14, 2K15, Jeff Teague is going to become an all-star. So in 2K11 he was a 63. In this game here he is a 76. Zaza Pachulia also getting a bit of a boost. Here's a fun one. The team that a lot of people played with online back in 2K11, the LeBron James era of the Miami Heat. LeBron here matching the overall they had in 2K11 at a 97. And then Dwayne Wade, underrated. In 2K11, he finished the season at a 97. Here he is labeled as a 93. Chris Bosh, right around the same, 88 in 2K24, 87 in 11. Haslam being a bit overrated. He finished 2K11 with a 71. Here he's a 79. Mike Miller, pretty close to the same overall. James Jones getting the huge boost in 24 from a 58 to a 76. And then we got some other players that are off ever so slightly. I take that back. This one is not slightly. Eddie House at a 75. Meanwhile, he was a 56 in 2K11. Still a beast, though. Can hit those threes. All right, the Chris Paul New Orleans Hornets. The overall for Chris Paul right around the same. He's actually a little bit underrated in 2K24 with a 93 overall. And then all of the rest of these top players, ever so slightly overrated. David Weston, 84 and 24. He was a 75 and 11. Emeka Okafor, 81 in 2K24, 77 in 2K11. For the most part, these are pretty good. I do see we have a few players missing. All right, I went to IGN for this one because Darren Williams ended up getting traded, I believe. He's not showing up on hoopshype.com. In 2K11, Darren Williams started at a 92. Meanwhile, in 2K24, being a little underrated, just pre-planning the regression he's going to have, putting him at an 87 overall. And then Al Jefferson, I can't remember if this was the year he got traded. He is nowhere to be seen. I think Al Jefferson might not have gotten his rights in this game. Yeah, Al Jefferson should be here, and he is not. He's gone. Meanwhile, we got Gordon Hayward being overrated at a 78, while in 2K11 he was a 64. Millsap being overrated too at an 84 overall, while he was a 74 in 2K11. Andre Karolinko a little bit overrated because this is a little bit past his. Is it past his prime? Nah, I don't know. Maybe 2K11 underrated him, honestly. But yeah, he's got a big boost compared to his 2K11 rating. One of my favorite teams to rebuild, the Sacramento Kings. It seems some of these overalls match pretty well. The big exception being DeMarcus Cousins, again with the hindsight being 2020. In 2K11, he finished with a 70 overall. But here in 2K24, already pre-planning his dominance. He's here with an 82 overall. Beno Udrih, another one. I'm surprised he got this high of a rating in 2K24 at a 79. He was a 66 in 11. And then we also have this. We have some fake players because these guys were not in 2K11. That's for sure. So we have some fake players filling out the roster here. Dante Green, he was a 62 in 2K11 up to a 72 in 24. All right, we got the New York Knicks. This is pre-trading for Carmelo Anthony. So actually, if we want to see Carmelo's rating, we have to go over here. So 92 overall, which in 2K11 he was a 93, so pretty close. Mari Stoudemire was an 86 in 2K11. He's a 90 in 24. Yeah, we're going to have to flip back and forth for some of these, actually, if I'm looking at hoopshype.com for these ratings. So Chauncey Billups, pretty similar to his 2K11 rating. For some reason, we're missing J.R. Smith from hoopshype.com. Not sure what's up with that. All right, let's move on to the next team. All right, the one that most people will care about the most for this game, the Los Angeles Lakers. From 2K11, Kobe finished the season at a 97 overall, and here in 2K24, they have him starting the season at a 95. Pau Gasol is like right there. They have it matched perfectly, 89 overall in 2K11 as well as 2K24. Lamar Odom, there's a 3 overall difference. Ron Artest, looking over at IGN, it's a 1 overall difference. Shannon Brown, that's a little bit of a bigger gap, 78 to 73. Derek Fisher, a bit of a bigger gap, went up to 76 from a 69. Overall, though, it looks like this roster, they tried to mimic the best, with 2K11's roster. I guess that would make sense since this is the Kobe edition of the game of 2K, with the Mamba moments and everything. They probably wanted to get the roster as close to 2K11's as possible. All right, the Orlando Magic, 2K24, Dwight is a 94, but in 2K11 he finished with an 88. This is when his regression, if you want to call it that, started. He was still obviously a dominant center for a few years in the league, and then went more into a role player type of role. However, still a dominant force. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with the 94. But yeah, in 2K11 he finished with the 88. Jameer Nelson, I'd say a little bit overrated here in 2K24. He was a 75 in 2K11. JJ Redick up 10 overall from a 66 to a 76. All right, my favorite team, the Dallas Mavericks. Dirk is getting a huge boost in the ratings, predicting his finals run here, giving him the 94 overall. In 2K11, he actually finished the season with an 83. I would have expected at least a 90, not an 83. That seems pretty low in 2K11. So I am okay with 2K24 bumping his stats a little bit, that is for sure. Jason Terry also getting a bump. He was a 78 in 2K11, now an 85 in 2K24. Tyson Chandler getting the much-deserved bump. In 2K11, he was given a 66 overall. That seems terribly low, especially considering he is like one of the centerpiece players for that championship run. I mean, all Mavs fans complain about nowadays for the past decade has been how we don't have a good defensive center on the team. So, yeah, the fact that Tyson Chandler is only a 66 overall in 2K11 is a bit absurd. So I'd say this is less of a 2020 hindsight and more of like this is a good rating, I would say, a more accurate rating, if you will. Jason Kidd right around the same. Sean Marion right around the same. Jan Mahinmi getting that 20 overall bump from a 51 to a 71. All right, the New Jersey Nets. We got Brook Lopez, an 85 overall. He was an 81 in 2K11. We have a young Derek Favors that's for whatever reason not showing up on hoopshype.com, which is a bit ridiculous because he was there. He was there the whole time. Over at IGN, Derek Favors was 73, so 78 is a little bit of a bump, but kind of just predicting that he's going to be a better player, I suppose. Anthony Morrow, he was considered a low-key beast type of a player in 2K. Back before they called them budget players, before he had my team, it was just like one of those hidden gem players, if you will. So, Anthony Morrow getting the 10 overall bump. Joe Smith also getting a 10 overall bump from a 62 to a 72. All right, I'm using IGN from here on out because they seem to at least include all the players. I don't know what's going on over at hoopshype.com, but they're missing some players on their rosters. Chauncey Billups and Carmelo, like I said, right around the same. Nene getting a bump from a 75 to an 83 in 2K24. Ty Lawson getting a little bit of a bump from a 75 to an 81. J.R. Smith getting a decent-sized bump, predicting his ability to improve from a 71 to an 81. Kenyon Martin right around the same. Aaron Aflalo, a huge boost from a 65 to a 78. Chris Anderson, another one with a huge boost from a 66 to a 78. Al Harrington right around the same. Sheldon Williams, a huge bump from a 60 to a 75. My goodness. And then we got some fake players. Indiana Pacers. This is before Paul George became a superstar. He was just coming into the league. In 2K24, I actually respect the 80 overall. In 2K11, he started at a 71, so this I can get behind. Not too bad. Danny Granger at the exact same overall. Roy Hibbert. This one's a bit off, I would say. Well, I don't know. 2K11, he's at a 71. Here, 2K24, he's an 82. Darren Collison, same rating. Mike Dunleavy getting the huge jump from a 65 in 2K11 to a 79 in 2K24. Tyler Hansbrough also getting a bit of a jump from a 68 to a 79. All right, Detroit. All these ratings, just at a glance, pretty similar. A little bit of a boost here for Richard Hamilton. Rodney Stuckey getting a 6 overall boost. Greg Monroe. This is the one that's a little bit different. In 2K11, he was at a 67 starting out in the league. And here in 2K24, predicting that he's going to become a decent player, 79 overall. All the rest of these are pretty close. Okay, the Toronto Raptors, they were absolutely cursed in 2K11, and now they're getting overrated in 2K24. And the biggest overrating that I am seeing, Bargnani got the 10 overall boost for whatever reason, but DeMar DeRozan, wow, yeah, he was a 64 overall in 2K11, and here he is in 2K24, an 82 overall, 18 overall boost. And let me tell you, when you're playing with the Raptors in 2K11, no one was thinking about DeMar DeRozan. You had Bargnani, you had Jose Calderon, Jarrett Jack, and maybe you go to Barbosa because he's super quick, super fast. But no one was going to DeMar DeRozan. But, I mean, looking at the ratings now, you got to imagine DeMar's like a first or second option when you're playing with the Raptors here in the LeBron era of 2K24. Yeah, a lot of these Raptors players actually got some big boosts, but DeMar DeRozan is the one that stands out the most. Okay, the Houston Rockets. Surprisingly, Yao Ming getting a little underrated here. In 2K11, he was an 83. Here in 2K24, a 79. And then Kevin Martin's getting overrated with an 84 overall as opposed to an 80. And then Aaron Brooks falling off a little bit in 2K24. Luis Scola going up. It's a little back and forth action here with all these Rockets players. Kyle Lowry, I kind of figured he'd get a little overrated because back in 2K11, that's before he truly became the star player that he became in Toronto. And I see we're missing quite a few players. We're missing Chase Budinger. I don't see Patrick Patterson in here. And of course, my favorite, one of the worst free throw forms of all time, Chuck Hayes is missing from this roster. Oh, no, actually, sorry. He's right here. Chuck Hayes, a 68 overall in 2K11, up to a 79 in 2K24. All right, this should be a fun one. The San Antonio Spurs, Duncan, his overall matches in 2K11. Tony Parker, a little bit of a boost here in 2K11 in 2K24 versus 2K11, up 8 overall points. Manu, almost right on the dot. George Hill, almost right on the dot. Tiago Splitter definitely getting a bump, 14 overall from a 64 to a 78. Richard Jefferson, pretty close. Antonio McDyess, an 88 overall bump. Matt Bonner getting a huge jump from a 58 overall in 2K11 to a 76 in 2K24. And then it looks like we are missing a few players. For all I know, could be trades that are affecting this. However, I believe this IGN roster is from pre-release of the game. But we don't see any Dewan Blair here. And we don't see Alonzo G. Phoenix Suns, under 10 seconds of offense every possession. Steve Nash's overall matches perfectly. And then we have some players getting a little bit of a overrated bump from 2K11. Jason Richardson up from a 73 to an 80. And I knew it. I knew Channing Frye was going to get a huge bump. 63 overall in 2K11. He's a 77 in 2K24. All right, the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is another one where I kind of figured some players are going to get some huge bumps. Durant's right around where he was in 2K11, but Russell Westbrook, he was an 81 in 2K11, believe it or not, and here in 2K24, already pushing him to a 93. Same with Serge Ibaka. He was actually a 65 in 2K11. This was before he became extremely dominant, and in 2K24, we're already predicting the dominance in the paint with an 83 overall. James Harden getting a little bit of a bump as well, and actually, I do not like this. I don't believe James Harden had that big of a beard yet. I could be wrong. Let me search this. So he had a beard, but it was definitely not that bushy. Oh well, can't get them all right, I suppose. Yeah, speaking of not getting them all right, this was not Kevin Love's hair in 2K11, that is for sure. This was like his Cleveland Cavaliers hairdo, so they need to fix that up a little bit. But yeah, he got a huge ratings bump. In 2K11, he was at a 74 overall, but here in 2K24, they're already pushing him to all-star status with an 87. Michael Beasley also getting a bit of a bump from a 74 to an 80. This was like my second favorite team to do rebuilds with in 2K11. First was like the Kings. Second was the Timberwolves every single time. I also loved having Wesley Johnson, who does not appear to be a playable player in 2K anymore, which is disappointing. Luka Renauer getting the bump from a 72 to a 79. Corey Brewer, 70 to a 76. Darko Milicic, he was not that good anymore come 2010, 2011. But in 2K11 he had a 57 overall. In 2K24 he's got that 75 overall. That might be a little bit much, but we'll leave it. We'll leave it to him. Anthony Tolliver getting a 10 overall bump from a 62 to a 72. I also noticed Nikola Pekovic is not here as well, and that was the starting center. That was not Darko Milicic. Maybe that's why 2K and 2K24 gave Darko Milicic the overall rating boost so that the Timberwolves could still remain as competitive as they were in 2K11. It would be nice to see someone come out with some custom rosters for the 2010-2011 season because, it would be nice to relive the rebuilding 2K11 days with the actual roster as opposed to missing some key players here. Portland Trailblazers, LaMarcus Aldridge getting the huge bump from a 77 to an 85. Brandon Roy actually gets downgraded from an 88 to an 84. So in 2K11, Brandon Roy was by far the best player on the roster, and now he's second fiddle to LaMarcus Aldridge, I suppose. Nicholas Batum, a huge boost from a 69 to an 82. Andre Miller right around the same, 76 to an 81. Wesley Matthews getting the huge boost as well from a 66 to an 80. And then Marcus Camby right around the same overall. However, in 2K11, he was the second highest overall rated player, and now he's the, 3, 4, 5, 6. Greg Oden up from a 75 to a 79. All right, almost to the finish line, we have the Stephen Curry Monte Ellis Warriors. Now, of course, in 2K11, this was I think this is Curry's second year in the league now. So they put him in 84 overall here. In 2K11, he was an 80. In 2K11, Monte Ellis was the highest rated player. However, in 2K24, he's tied here with Curry. However, is the same overall. David Lee is missing, and that's huge. David Lee was a key player for this Warriors team, and to not have him here on the 2011 roster is definitely not good. Gonna have to wait for those custom rosters to come out for sure. In 2K11, David Lee was an 83 overall, and yeah, to not have him. Instead, we have Darrell Wright getting a huge overall ratings boost, probably to make up for it. He was a 64 in 2K11 and now a 79 in 2K24. And then same with Rodney Carney, who, I gotta be honest, don't even remember using him ever in 2K11. He was a 59 overall. And here in 2K24, he's a 72. Same with Vladimir Radmanovich, 72 overall in 2K24. He was a 53 in 2K11. And then Jeremy Lin, yeah, let me tell you, I don't think he was even on the roster in 2K11 as like a play. I think he might have been a G League player, or well, back then it was the Development League, the D League. Yeah, I'm not seeing him at all, but I can guarantee you almost he was nowhere near a 72 overall. That would have been until like 2K12 or 2K13 he gets that overall ratings boost. All right, we're here on the last team. Now in 2K11, Gilbert Arenas for the Washington Wizards was the highest rated player on the team, and here in 2K24, he is the 5th highest rated player. So little bit of a difference, but yeah, back in 2K11, you had like the backcourt of Gilbert Arenas and John Wall, and now you got the backcourt of John Wall and Nick Young as your star players. So Nick Young got a huge jump from a 66 to an 80. John Wall in 2K11 was an 81, now he's an 83. Andre Bloch got a bit of a jump from a 72 to an 80, but I would argue that's fine. JaVale McGee, definitely too big of a boost for what he was doing with the Wizards in 2011. Up from a 66 to a 79, in my opinion, it's a little bit much. Kirk Heinrich right around the same. A lot of these other players right around the same. And it looks like we're missing Adam Morrison, which is, not the end of the world. Same with Cartier Martin. Looks like he's not available as well. He was sort of like one of those forwards that had a decent three-point rating that you would want to pick up for your team back in 2K11. And that's that. That is the roster. It looks like they have some G League teams here. I'm not going to go through all these. Let me know what y'all think about these changes in the ratings in the comments down below. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Personally, again, I think some of these, it's just hindsight is 2020. And actually, where's Allen Iverson? I remember him being like the key free agent to pick up in 2K11. He always like almost immediately signed with a team. I'm not seeing him here at all, which is very interesting. We didn't skip over him, did we? At least I don't think we did. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments down below. I think some of this is just hindsight's 2020 as to, players becoming really good, like Joakim Noah becoming a defensive player of the year, or some of these other ones. It's a little bit over the top of the range. Blake Griffin, that's a pretty good example right there. So yeah, I think some of them are a little overrated, some ever so slightly underrated. compared to 2K11. I think for the most part they got it right, and the big part that's disappointing, which we're just gonna have to wait for other people to create custom rosters to download, is players that didn't give the rights to 2K, so they're not in the game. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next one.